the way this needs to work, we have to continue with our first session, which I think is a really interesting one. So we are going to stick a foot in the water, a finger in the sand, I don't know what you do, and look at what public sector bodies are actually doing. So the organizations in scope of the directive, how are they doing? What is the state of the art? And I would like to welcome Bart Declercq to the stage here with me today. Bart was so engaged in the workshop discussions yesterday that I said that his words were out, but now you can get your level.
It's a new day.
Yeah, it's a new day. You get new words. So, but you know you have a short period of time. So with we start with the public sector bodies and look. We will listen to good practices from Belgium, Italy, and Austria, and different levels of public sector as well. So this will be 3 short presentations from different parts of Europe. We will have Bart here with us, and then 2 speakers online, which I hope we have with us already. And then we will open up the floor for questions. And I need to have this little thing because otherwise I cannot give it to you. And if you push that one, I think it should magically turn into your first. Wow. Sometimes it just works. Yeah.
This is the one I sent you yesterday.
This is the one you sent me yesterday before your words was off. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to talk about something we did relatively recently, despite us being the monitoring body since... I want to talk about something we did relatively recently, despite being the monitoring body for quite a few years. And that's, and I'll describe first our organization. BOSA is a federal ministry with a centralized communication, but we provide a lot of platforms, services with independent projects and development teams, lots of technical depth, and an awareness of accessibility requirements, but certainly a lack of expertise across the teams. In fact, last year, during a preparatory meeting for a release of one of our bigger platforms, I was present for other reasons, but management then asked, is the release fully accessible? Because they are very much aware of the requirements. And the team answered, well, we're not sure. And then they turned to me and I said, well, did you check it? And I told them, well, that's not my job. My job isn't to evaluate the accessibility of all our developments and all our platforms within our own organization. My job is, as part of the monitoring body, is the monitoring of all federal websites. This surprised them. They asked, well, who is doing that? And the answer was basically nobody. So we kind of took advantage of that situation about the question, and we proposed and got accepted an approach that we're trying to implement still today. So one element in that was that accessibility issues need to be blocking for new release, meaning that if there are known accessibility issues in the release, they should be blocking the release, with the exception of urgent security releases where security will prime above accessibility. What we did was we started up a small team of in-house accessibility expertise called the Accessibility Disc. It's easy to contact. We integrate the experts in the way of working of the individual development teams, and they do proactive follow-up of any issues. So if they are present in presentations about new releases, if they see issues, they will themselves contact the development team. They are inside their projects. They will answer questions directly in their ticketing systems, and they perform pre-release auditing. So if their release is prepared, they will do a final audit before the release. That's an approach we started last year. We're doing it now, but you need to be able to measure how effective that is. So we set up a number of KPIs, a bit too many to my mind, but I think we'll clean that up later. So we have a list of 30 KPIs by which we measure the success of the accessibility team, the accessibility desk, and things like the number of code reviews performed, participation in review meetings, education sessions, accessibility issues identified, etc., etc. And every year we will evaluate all the KPIs, not just are the numbers high enough, but also is the KPI useful? Because you can imagine 30 KPIs long-term is not really a very practical thing to maintain, but we want to hone down to the ones that really give value. The result is visible. I'm not going to say it's perfect. It's very far from perfect, if only because of the legacy. And that's there we have a pragmatic approach. The goal is not to release without any accessibility issues. Unfortunately, that might, for some projects, just block releases for a very, very long time, which is unmaintainable. So existing issues are not blocking for the release unless they are really, really severe, in which case we've probably resolved them by now. But we will fix them in a backlog over time with the assistance of the accessibility desk. New projects, they are involved from the beginning in the project so that no issues get to release because they are there stopping it or helping to fix it before. But we want to avoid, for legacy projects, we want to avoid new issues from being added with changes. So any change to the system cannot contain new accessibility issues, and the known issues will be fixed release by release by release in a relatively steady pattern. We started small with about 4 projects. Some of them are quite major projects, but we have a lot more within BOSA, and we're expanding gradually and optimizing our way of working. The people on the accessibility desk are also learning how to do this, how to handle this, what the most efficient approach is. In the last year and a half, we've tackled hundreds of issues. I can honestly say that almost every release of some of our biggest platforms would have been a lot worse in terms of accessibility without them. And we've also noticed that some of the development teams, their own awareness, knowledge, and experience is growing as well, because they get suggestions and proposals for the fixes, but they understand the issues, meaning that in their future development, they will themselves try to avoid causing those issues. And also they're themselves more proactive. If they need to implement something, they will contact the accessibility desk team to ask them to validate stuff even earlier in the realization. So we are seeing a very positive effect there. That is a movement that's significantly larger than in the years before, despite us being the accessibility monitoring body and despite everybody somewhere being aware of the requirement. So this feels like a very good success. I'm not sharing the KPI numbers with you for this year. We still need to do the evaluation, but we are seeing significant progress there. And hopefully we'll want to roll that model out outside BOSA to other federal instances for federal organizations, and maybe as a good practice for all public bodies in Belgium.
Perfect, thank you. And in time, impressive. So now we will collect all the questions in the end, and now we move to Italy. Daniele Tabellini, who is the UX and UI and UX designer for Digital Transformation Department of the Government of Italy. I kind of cut that down a little bit to be able to read it, but I'm sure you can present yourself and where you're from. And I believe you can also change your slides, or am I going to do that for you?
I don't know if I can change the slides, but I will say by voice change or something like that, I think. Thank you, Susanna. I feel a great responsibility to be here in this interesting day of keynotes and tell you about a project that I care a lot about. I'm sorry to say that my English is a little bit rusty, but so be polite with me. Let's get started. Design System Italia, Open Design for Digital Public Services. I am Daniele Tabellini, as Susanna just said. I am an UI UX designer working for the Department for Digital Transformation of the Italian government. We will explore together briefly Design System Italia and its role in improving digital accessibility for Italian public administration websites. Please move forward one slide. Okay, thank you. Design System Italia is a product of a larger project that is called Designers Italia. The Web Accessibility Directive, the European Accessibility Act, are driving digital inclusivity across Europe. In Italy, the Department for Digital Transformation and the Agency for Digital Italy led this effort, also through the project Designers Italia. This joint initiative supports over 23,000 public entities, public bodies, and their suppliers, aiming to enhance citizens' experience. You can find a lot more information, unluckily just in Italian language, on the website designers.italia.it, where you will be welcomed by the claim, be part of country's digital transformation, as shown on the screen grab on the previous slide. A design system is a comprehensive set of guides, components, tools, and processes that ensure consistency and coherence in the design and development of digital products. Please go forward. What if design system were a language? Italian designer Massimo Vignelli said, "Good design is a language, not a style." Design systems are like languages. Foundations are the alphabet and the grammar. Components are words, the vocabulary. Patterns are the syntax, how we combine two words to create meaning. An example, a classic login journey is a pattern. And updates and continuous improvement represent language evolution. Please, one slide more. Design System Italia has three main parts: documentation, design tools, and development frameworks. This ecosystem covers from content to components and ready-to-use code. One more. Design System Italia pieces are also used to assemble website templates for specific categories of Italian public entities, public bodies. Here, on the right of the slide, for example, is a mock-up of the template for Italian municipalities. Their adoption of these website templates, required by law and promoted also through the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, has involved over 13,000 administrations in the last 2 years alone. More. One slide, okay. Key features, let's delve into the key features of what we think is important of our approach in Design System Italia, on .Italia. Open source collaboration, content, design, and code is all managed in the open. Accessibility by design. Integrating accessibility, we try to integrate accessibility principles from the ground up, trying to empower suppliers and public bodies to start their projects with accessible by default components. Open governance. We maintain a public management board, fostering transparency and allowing the community to participate. Here on the right of this slide, there is a screen grab of it from GitHub, from our Italian organization on GitHub. Community-oriented. We encourage user feedback and contribution. One more. It's very awkward to say one more each time. Our focus on maintainability and accessibility of the Design System Italia resources has been in some way data informed. The path towards accessibility goes through regular error monitoring led by the Agency for Digital Italy. On the left, the simplified monitoring, a quarterly simplified monitoring of a subset of criteria of over 27,000 websites, covering more than 4 million pages. On the right, there is a list of the, speaking of the yearly in-depth assessment of all the criteria of over 100 websites, examining over 1,000 pages manually. This data help us identify and address common accessibility issues. The dataset are available at the website shown at the bottom of this slide that I hope they will make available to you. Next slide, and we are arriving to the end. Design System Italia is an evolving framework. We have a continuous accessibility improvement approach. Our improvement process includes monitoring form and enhancement, design system with accessible components, as we all know, doesn't fix everything. doesn't fix everything. Obviously, the context counts a lot, but we learned in the last few years that some of the most common errors maybe could be prevented by standardized components. For example, errors such as focus, contrast, and name, role, and value. We conduct regular testing cycles with experts and with trained individuals, promoting full transparency through a dedicated public board that is shown on the right up of this slide. We do real-world usability testing, collaborating with organizations like the Italian Accessibility Days to conduct sessions with people with disabilities, such our municipality template test at the last year Wired Next Fest in Milan, portrayed in the picture, on the bottom picture. One more slide, please. Design System Italia is also tried to be also a sandbox to drive innovation. Over the years, I think we have made some bold choices, such as deprecating complex custom components, like the classic custom date pickers, in favor of semantic standard HTML. We conduct extensive user and tech research for new components. Recently, for example, we developed an accessible and privacy-compliant video player for our Designers Italia website, which is now part of the design system, available to all the public bodies in it. And last but not least, we actively encourage community contributions. For example, one of the latest suggestions a few days ago is from a famous Italian accessibility expert, I think, who might be in this room, in this conference, to add a default item link in our skip links component to jump directly to the accessibility declaration in the footer of the website. I think it's a great idea. We have still to make tests, but maybe it could be useful to many others here. Last slide, please. I want to thank you for your attention to this brief presentation. I know that there is still much to do, with numerous challenges ahead for all of us. But we believe that together, sharing and caring, we can make digital Italy and digital Europe more accessible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniele. So your English is perfect. We are all Europeans here, so when we share in our kind of pidgin English, we are all struggling, and you're doing fine. So that was very good to hear from you. And I want to say to everyone that Daniele has a much longer presentation with loads of links and things, and I had to ask him to take them out because it becomes very cluttered when presenting, but we will share that with you afterwards, so you can have access to all the interesting open source features that he was talking about. So now we turn to Austria. Ronald Maier, who is the Vice President for Digitalization and Knowledge Transfer at the University of Vienna, is going to share with us some best practices and good ideas from the Austrian capital. Please, Rainer, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you very well.
Wonderful. Thank you. A warm welcome from Vienna here. It is my great pleasure to be able to share with you the perspective that I have on this topic from where I sit. So who am I? I'm Ronald Maier. I'm Professor of Information Systems, actually at the University of Innsbruck. And I have been now for 5 years serving as the Vice Rector for Digitalization and Knowledge Transfer here at the University of Vienna. And 5 years ago, actually, you know, many universities in Austria created a role in the executive board, the rectorate it's called in the university, specifically dedicated to digitalization. And this was a concerted effort, you know, of the ministry pushing for this, but the University of Vienna actually also actively engaged in creating such a role. And then, you know, we were engaging in a couple of projects together with other universities, one of which being the foundation of a so-called Forum Digitalization of all the vice rectors and vice presidents of the universities in Austria on this topic. Why am I saying this? Because it was kind of, you know, an impulse coming in that allowed us to actually, you know, use and embrace, you know, and embrace the topic of digitalization, not only from the opportunity side, but also from the challenging side. And this together, we endeavored to have what we call a very holistic picture of what digitalization means for universities. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for cooperating. And the first thing is, of course, we have to provide digital accessibility. But this slide is about that we want to provide digital accessibility. The University of Vienna, as many universities in Europe, is a research-intensive university. So we are kind of, our self-identity is that we conduct research and we are pro-innovation. Now, also digital accessibility is an innovation, isn't it? We are knowledge exchange oriented, meaning we want to share knowledge. We want to also acquire knowledge, from society, in this case, about digital accessibility. We are open, international, and diverse. So actually, from our culture, we should embrace digital accessibility very much. And this is, what we try to actually set the scene for, when we embarked on a journey together with Rainer Jantscher, who's also here today. He's the project leader or program leader, I should say, because it's not a single project anymore, on digital accessibility as part of digital transformation at the University of Vienna. Next slide, please. What did we do? Our goals were actually, to bundle measures into a program, because of course there were tons of measures already there. Just to give you an indication, interestingly enough, a single institution like the University of Vienna already, happens, I'm not saying boast, happens to have over 1,500 websites, and over 2,000 people have been taking care of these websites, providing contents, navigating things like that, with over 1 million web pages. So it's a single institution, but it's a very decentral institution, like universities typically are. It's an expertocracy, so people know best what is good for them, So lots of measures out there, for the individual websites, for different parts of the university, and we tried to bundle these measures. Second thing, strategic anchoring. We wanted to give it a space, where it's actually valued from the top of the management of the executive board of the university. And we wanted to proactively really engage more students and staff with disabilities as they have been engaged before the program. Importantly enough, I think, is that we tried to bring together very much the organizational units that were at the forefront of, preparing the decentral organizations for creating web pages, websites, documents, whatnot, content in a more digitally accessible way. These were the computing center, the teaching affairs and student services, the library, corporate communications, human resources and gender equality, and the office of directorate. So each of those had a very important stake, in this endeavor together. The group was led by Rainer Jantscher, part of the Vienna University Computing Center, whom I thank very much at this moment for doing that job. The three parts that you see on the right-hand side, we'll walk through in the next 3 slides. Next slide, please. Strategic anchoring. Now, my credo is there shouldn't be a policy without service, So we waited a little time, until we had the digitalization strategy ready, which gave the all-encompassing picture of what we intended to do in digital transformation of the university, and in which digital accessibility was an important part of, caring, in the caring part, digitalization with care, we call the the chapter of the digitalization strategy, in which we, among other things, specifically targeted the increasing importance of digital accessibility at our university. We involved not only the different organizational units I was talking about so far, but also faculties in this program. We were networking on the operational level of those people who actually create content, but also provide systems for creating, for example, websites or documents for students, employees, the general public. the information level for creating fora, space for exchanging opinions about this, and the strategic levels, meaning giving it a part of the table, when we talk about digital transformation in general. We involved directly, as I already said, that people with disabilities, established a competence team, and we are now, regularly monitoring how our measures are implemented. For example, the number of service tickets we've got to our service desk, things like that. Next slide, please. Information measures, as my predecessors already said, of course, there's you need to invest a lot in creating competences. How did we do that? We not only created our own training measures, or actually we extended them very much during the last couple of years, but we also were investing a lot in self-organized learning at the university, meaning we created a knowledge base in the intranet of the university where people could self-organize in a self-organized manner, navigate the resources that we've created for them, learning videos. We invited them for hybrid events, such as the one that we are in there today. And we created a massive open online course that we shared via the so-called Digital University Hub with all the Austrian universities and beyond. So the Digital University Hub plus the iMOOCs platform is actually created by the universities for the general public on the topic of digital accessibility. We created a specific MOOC, which already boasts, I think, 500 participants around that, who went through the program already. And by this, we spread the word and introduced all our findings, best practices, also to the other universities in Austria. Next slide, please. Technical services. My predecessors here in this session already talked a lot about the technical part of it. What we did is accessibility reviews we are offering as a service. We are offering automatic monitoring of digital accessibility with the tool that we use for that. We offer professional support for key projects. So the one thing is about the existing landscape of content that we've got. The other thing is that we invest very much into key projects that we've got. One of them is currently underway, which is a website relaunch project in which digital accessibility has been an important topic from day one of creating the project scope. Exactly. And we are supported, I should mention that as well, by an external partner, an agency that has got all the knowledge and expertise about web accessibility, especially in this case, for the community of Austrian public sector companies and organizations specifically, I think, And also in this project, we proactively engage the so-called target audience of people with disabilities for accessibility tests. I think that was the last slide, I guess. Thank you. No, the last slide is timeline and process. We started off with the digitalization strategy in 2020 and established the digital accessibility group in early 2022. Created the policy plus the services, I should say, in February 2023. All this was launched. And now we are meeting up regularly. And since May 2024, there's an online course on digital accessibility shared with the world. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm happy to answer questions together with my esteemed colleagues in this session.
Thank you, Ronald. So we have now heard from different types of organizations and also different approaches. So I think Bart is presenting kind of the street smart, clever way of not letting anything out of the box if it's not accessible. We have the Italian way, Daniele talking about really providing a service that all public sector bodies can use by using the same, really making sure that you scale accessibility by kind of solving it at one place and then just distributing it, which is a very, very efficient way of doing this. And from Austria, we are hearing about really a culture change and making people do the right thing more for maybe more a soft skill approach to that. And I must say, I'm I'm very impressed by somebody talking from a university perspective. That is this positive, because all of our clients from universities have always been very depressed. It must be the most difficult thing to herd the cats of all the institutions in universities. Very well done to the University of Vienna. But I wanted to start with asking Bart, this approach and the really clever approach that you have implemented in your organization, what do people think? Are they frustrated, happy? I mean,
it varies. Like I said, we have many different teams. Some came to it with a very positive approach. They were really happy to have the resource available and to have a point of contact, to be able to ask the questions, get the support. Other teams, it took a while and a bit of pushing and to get them to in line, let's put it that way. We tried to be as low impact as possible to convince them that it's not going to increase their workload. It's going to streamline their workload. Basically, it's much better to fix the issues at the start than being confronted at the end and have to rework.
Yeah, then you come
because legally they will have to fix them if they exist. So some teams it works better than others. Most teams are really on board now, even the ones that were difficult in the first place. They do notice that once they get into it and once the accessibility desk people are helping them, they do feel the improvement. So they do notice it makes sense to do it that way, and we can include them in the processes, and it avoids complications afterwards. But it took a while.
Yeah.
And we're still working relatively small scale. Even within BOSA, there are still many teams where the touch is rather too light right now to have a real impact. But we are growing. We are providing the service to more and more projects. And we've already had some projects, especially new ones, where they were involved from start. And we also, at slightly less impressive scale than what Italy did, we also have a design system built with the goal of rolling it out to new projects and application development, and also providing it outside BOSA to other federal institutions. And there, the accessibility desk was involved virtually from the start in making sure that all the components and all the guidelines and everything conformed to accessibility requirements, so that we could be sure. And it wasn't officially released until all the accessibility issues were fixed. So that's a real example of one where the accessibility issues were blocking for the release. In all honesty, it's not yet that way for all of the projects. In part also, well, we are a ministry. Sometimes there are also political pressures, and there are differing requirements. It's not always possible to enforce that in all cases.
The best practice here is the idea, and that you have implemented the idea.
And I do notice both the enthusiasm and also the increased knowledge within the teams. And that's maybe the more remarkable thing, is the awareness and the fact that issues get resolved and that issues get notified and explained. And especially the explained is important. If you just get an audit report with a list of issues, that doesn't necessarily help you to fix them. If somebody is there to tell you, well, you can do this or this.
Yes, and now I need to give the floor to the other speakers as well. I'm sorry. I know you're doing so many interesting things, and we want you to share them, but we do have a limited time. So I wanted to ask Daniele, I mean, it's an impressive thing that you have done, and also get all these, I can't remember the number now, but many thousand of organizations using it in Italy. So how has the approach been from the public sector bodies? Are they happy to get this, or is anyone feeling, oh no, I'm kind of restrained, I want to do it the other way around, I want to build it upside down, or how's the attitude there?
I mean, there's two kind of attitudes that I can try to use to answer this question. The one is it's pretty practical. In the last few years, with the national plan, the National Resilience Recovery Plan, the Italian part of the Next Generation EU plan fundings, they are very happy because they have funds to do their new websites using templates. We are speaking about 23,000 public bodies in Italy, and the ones that get funded in the last 2 years and the next two till the end of the Next Generation EU plan are about 60,000, I think, to make new websites. 8,000 more or less municipalities, 8,000 more or less schools. They are very happy to have money to do the new websites, to have funds, and also they are. When we speak with them, they are the suppliers and the public bodies are in some way we can use excited to use a starting template, to use an open source starting template, and to have a place where they get together to comment, suggest, open issues, and so on. I think I feel a nice feeling around about this new improvement in the Italian public administration digital scene.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part is that the fact that everything we do is open source, not just the code, but also the design and also the management is public on GitHub, in some way has made an example. We are not anymore the only ones sharing around. There is a strong suggestions by the law to make all your digital products in the public bodies open source in Italy, but it's not mandatory. And after we started this many years ago, and we made these examples so strong. I see a lot of public administrations and suppliers do the same around Italy, and I love this because in a scene with so many entities working together and alone in the country, just by open things we can do better things. I don't know if my English is understandable, but just so we must have an open source approach and an open approach in everything we do, because it's the only way we can do better stuff and better things, and do a better digital Europe, I think, no?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I think that what you also described, like the community feel, and that you receive feedback and then you improve, that is also a very important part of this, I think, and also to get people on board because they know that they can also influence the results. So that is very good. So I would like to turn to the university and Ronald with the same question. You seem to be very kind of engaged in this, and you say that it's a cultural change, and I think it's really important that the management applies this attitude and the culture change, but has it been difficult to get all these small and large organizations within the organizations and all the institutions to follow your lead, or I mean, how did you make it happen? Did you have to force them, or was it enough with your engagement?
I don't think you can force. I don't believe in forcing people. I believe in convincing. In convincing people. And I guess what we do is, we are now an expanding coalition of people who kind of continuously convince others, in our different parts of the university. So I'm speaking with the deans, for example, Leancha is speaking with the program managers of the different, website parts. The communication people are speaking with the web content managers up there, So everybody's speaking with a certain group. What we have is an approach that you could describe as overlapping communities. So we have one community, one general community that I would see, and then we've got communities that there is a linchpin between the overall community and the different communities in the university. And having said this, of course it is difficult, and of course there are people who ignore, our impulses. But I feel, that kind of the impulse is getting stronger. We're now discussing it also in a community of people across university boundaries. And it always helps, if people can come back from a community meeting and say, look, we're not the only ones doing that. I mean, others are pursuing the same path. And I guess what is an important criterion for success is that you've got the people for whom we work, invite them to events, and get this direct feeling, this authentic feeling of this is what we work for. This is why we do these things. And I guess connecting digital accessibility with all the other impulses that we have for a more open, like you said, open source, for open science, connecting them for, the diverse culture that we believe in, connecting them with collaboration that an international university stands for. So, who, if not we, should actually invest in that? And this narrative, actually, I feel is quite convincing. So this is what we're trying to pursue.
That sounds very good, and it's also a very positive note, I think, to end this panel. Thank you very much for your interventions here and for answering questions. And we will now move to a short break. I hope we have coffee in the room, and for everyone online, then you will have to serve your own coffee. I'm sorry about that, but at least for us, we have a 15-minute break, and we will reconvene at 11 o'clock Central European time. Thank you very much to our distinguished guests here. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much, and all the best to everybody.
Thank you.